There are some things you can say to a man that he may forgive, but he will never forget. And there are other things you can say that quietly change the way he sees you forever. That is why you need to understand something about relationships. Respect is not maintained by being perfect. Respect is maintained by knowing what to reveal, what to protect, and what should remain between you and your own heart. A woman can love a man deeply and still lose his respect without even realizing what happened. Not because she did something terrible, not because she stopped being beautiful, not because another woman was better. Sometimes she simply told him something that should have stayed unsaid. And once those words leave your mouth, you cannot pull them back. The strongest woman in the room is not always the woman who talks the most. Sometimes she is the woman who knows exactly what does not need to be said. You have to understand the difference between honesty and emotional exposure. Honesty builds trust. But telling someone every insecurity, every fear, every comparison, every private thought can sometimes hand them the exact information they need to stop appreciating your strength. And this is especially important when you are dealing with a man whose respect matters to you, because attraction may get his attention, but respect determines how seriously he takes you. You can make a man smile with your beauty. You can make him excited with your presence. You can make him miss you when you leave. But if you want something deeper, you have to become the kind of woman whose words carry weight. The first thing you should never tell a man is that you are afraid he will leave you. Now listen carefully. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you care about somebody. There is nothing wrong with saying, I love you. There is nothing wrong with being vulnerable with someone who has earned your trust. But there is a major difference between vulnerability and desperation. When you constantly tell a man, please don't leave me. I don't know what I would do without you. I need you. Or I'm scared you're going to find someone better. You are communicating something much deeper than love. You are telling him that your emotional stability depends on his presence. And that changes the balance. A healthy man does not want a woman who is terrified of losing herself because she might lose him. He wants a woman who chooses him because she wants him, not because she cannot survive without him. There is power in saying, I love having you in my life. There is weakness in saying, my life means nothing without you. Those two statements may sound similar, but they communicate completely different things. One says, I choose you. The other says, I depend on you. Never build your identity around the fear of somebody leaving, because when you become afraid of losing someone, you start making decisions based on that fear. You tolerate things you once promised yourself you would never tolerate. You accept less communication. You excuse disrespect. You stop asking for what you need. You become afraid to disagree. You laugh at things that hurt you. You stay silent when something bothers you because you think speaking up might push him away. And eventually, you are no longer trying to build a healthy relationship. You are trying to prevent a breakup. Those are two completely different things. A woman who is constantly trying to prevent a man from leaving slowly teaches him that she will accept almost anything to keep him. And once somebody believes you are afraid to walk away, they may stop feeling the need to treat you with the same care. This does not mean you should pretend you do not care. It means you need to care without abandoning yourself. There is a difference. You can love him and still have standards. You can miss him and still have a life. You can want him and still know that you will be okay if he chooses not to stay. That mindset changes everything. Because the moment you understand that you are not begging someone to choose you, your entire energy changes. You stop chasing. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop competing with imaginary women. You stop checking his phone every 5 minutes. You stop interpreting every delayed message as a sign that he has fallen out of love. You stop making his behavior the measurement of your value. And suddenly you become calmer. You become more secure. You become more attractive, not because you are playing games, but because you are no longer operating from fear. A man should know that you love him, but he should also know that you respect yourself. That combination is powerful. The second thing you should never tell a man is about another man who made you feel more valuable than he does. This is where many relationships become unnecessarily complicated. Some women bring up an ex constantly. My ex used to do this. My ex never treated me like that. My ex always knew what to say. My ex would have bought me this. My ex never ignored me. You may think you are making a point. You may think you are showing him what he needs to do better. But what he may hear is you are being compared to another man. And nobody wants to feel like they are competing with a ghost. If your previous relationship taught you something, carry the lesson forward. Do not carry the person forward. There is a difference between saying, I learned that communication is important to me, and saying my ex communicated better than you. One communicates a standard, the other creates competition. If you want a man to respect you, tell him what you need without making another man the example. Say, I value consistency. Say, I need honest communication. Say, I want a relationship where both people make an effort. Say, I don't feel comfortable with that behavior. Those statements are strong because they focus on you and your standards. You do not need another man's name to explain your worth. And you certainly do not need to make your current partner jealous just to get his attention. Jealousy may create a reaction, but reaction is not the same thing as respect. Some people believe that if they tell a man another man wants them, he will suddenly appreciate them more. Maybe he will react. Maybe he will become jealous. Maybe he will suddenly start texting more. But ask yourself something deeper. Do you really want a relationship where you have to threaten someone's sense of security just to make them value you? You should never have to manufacture competition to prove that you are valuable. Your value should already be obvious through the way you carry yourself. A woman who knows her worth does not need to announce how many men want her. She does not need to post things just to make somebody jealous. She does not need to tell her partner about every compliment she receives. She does not need to say, you know, I could have anybody I want. Because the woman who truly knows she has options does not have to scream about them. Her confidence speaks before she does. And here is something else you need to understand. Privacy is not secrecy. There are parts of your life that belong to you. There are thoughts you need to process before sharing them. There are conversations with friends that do not need to become ammunition inside your relationship. There are details about your past that can remain in the past. There are insecurities that you should work through instead of repeatedly placing them into somebody else's hands. Being open does not mean being completely exposed. You do not have to tell someone every thought that enters your mind. You do not have to confess every fear the moment you feel it. You do not have to explain every emotion before you understand it yourself. Sometimes you need to sit with your feelings. Ask yourself why you feel them. Ask yourself what triggered them. Ask yourself whether the problem is actually happening right now or whether an old wound is speaking, because when you react from an old wound, you can create a new problem. And the strongest thing you can do sometimes is pause. Not to manipulate, not to play hard to get, not to punish anybody, but because you have enough self-control to think before you speak. That is maturity. Anybody can react. Anybody can send the angry text. Anybody can make the accusation. Anybody can say, fine, I'm done. But emotional strength is being able to say, this hurt me, and I want to understand why before I respond. That kind of woman is difficult to shake, not because she has no emotions, because she knows how to manage them. And that is what you should be working toward, not becoming cold, not becoming heartless, not pretending you do not care. Become grounded, become secure, become a woman who can love deeply without losing herself. Because when you stop being afraid of losing someone, you become much more capable of loving them honestly. You can tell him what you need without begging. You can tell him what hurts without threatening. You can disagree without disrespecting. You can walk away from an unhealthy situation without trying to destroy the person. And you can stay when the relationship is healthy without feeling like you are sacrificing your identity. That is the balance. Love should add to your life, not become the only thing your life is about. Never let your relationship become your entire identity. Keep your friendships, keep your goals, keep your interests, keep developing yourself, keep learning, keep working, keep laughing, keep becoming, because the woman you were before the relationship deserves to exist during the relationship too. And the woman you become after the relationship, if it ever ends, should not have to rebuild herself from nothing. You should never give someone so much power that their decision to stay or leave determines whether you believe you are worthy, you were worthy before they arrive, you are worthy while they are there, and you remain worthy if they leave. That is the foundation of real self-respect. And when you understand that foundation, you stop saying things from fear. You stop telling a man, please don't leave me. You stop comparing him to another man. Instead, you communicate your standards. You communicate your feelings. You communicate your boundaries, and you allow his actions to tell you whether he is capable of meeting you there, because words can promise anything. Actions reveal everything. Never forget that. You do not have to convince a man to respect you. You have to respect yourself consistently enough that disrespect becomes something you cannot comfortably accept. And when you live from that place, you stop chasing respect. You start attracting relationships where respect is already part of the foundation. And this is where many women make the biggest mistake. They think keeping a man's respect means constantly proving that they are worthy of it. No, respect is not something you earn by becoming smaller. Respect is not something you keep by agreeing with everything he says. Respect is not something you protect by staying quiet whenever something bothers you. Real respect comes from the way you carry yourself when nobody is clapping for you. It comes from knowing your standards. It comes from knowing your boundaries. It comes from knowing what you will accept and what you will not. And most importantly, it comes from knowing that love should never require you to betray yourself. You can be soft and still be strong. You can be feminine and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still say no. You can forgive somebody and still decide that they no longer have access to you. You can miss someone and still refuse to chase them. You can want a relationship and still walk away from the wrong one. That is what emotional strength looks like. Because the moment you start believing that keeping a man means keeping him happy at all costs, you put yourself in a dangerous position. You begin measuring every word. You begin watching every reaction. You begin asking yourself, will he be upset if I say this? Will he leave if I disagree? Will he lose interest if I set this boundary? And slowly, without realizing it, you become a prisoner inside your own relationship. You are no longer being yourself. You are performing, and a relationship cannot survive forever when one person has to perform just to be loved. The right man does not need you to be perfect. He needs you to be real. He needs to know where you stand. He needs to know what matters to you. And you need to know the same about him. But there is another lesson you need to understand. Never use your deepest insecurities as weapons against yourself. If you constantly tell a man, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not as attractive as other women, you're probably going to find someone better. I don't think I'm good enough for you. Eventually, you are teaching him to see you through the lens of your insecurity. You might think you are asking for reassurance, but if you repeat it constantly, reassurance becomes a temporary treatment for a deeper problem. He tells you that you're beautiful. You believe him for 10 minutes. Then you need to hear it again. He tells you he loves you. You ask, are you sure? He says yes, and you ask, really? Then tomorrow you need the same confirmation. And the cycle continues. At some point, you have to learn how to give yourself the reassurance you keep asking another person to provide. Look in the mirror and understand that your worth is not waiting for somebody else's approval. A man can compliment you. He cannot create your confidence. A man can love you. He cannot become your entire identity. A man can choose you. He cannot determine whether you are worthy of being chosen. That decision belongs to you. And this is why self-respect is so powerful. When you respect yourself, you do not need to constantly announce it. You demonstrate it. You demonstrate it by the way you respond to disrespect. You demonstrate it by the company you keep. You demonstrate it by the standards you maintain. You demonstrate it by what you refuse to tolerate. You demonstrate it by the goals you continue pursuing. You demonstrate it by the way you speak to yourself when you are alone, because the world will often treat you according to the level of treatment you repeatedly accept. If you constantly forgive behavior that destroys your peace, people learn that your boundaries have no consequences. If you constantly chase people who withdraw from you, they learn that distance makes you chase harder. If you constantly apologize when you did nothing wrong, people may begin expecting you to carry blame that does not belong to you. You have to stop doing that, not because you want to become difficult, because you want to become healthy. There is a difference between being difficult and having standards. There's a difference between being cold and being emotionally disciplined. There is a difference between being unavailable and refusing to chase someone who is not making an effort. There is a difference between being independent and refusing to communicate. Do not confuse strength with silence. If something is wrong, communicate it. If something hurts you, say it. If you need clarity, ask for it. But say it once with confidence. You do not have to repeat yourself 20 times to make your point powerful. Your message becomes weaker when you keep explaining it after it has already been understood. Sometimes the strongest sentence is a simple one. I don't accept that. I deserve better communication. That doesn't work for me. I care about you, but I won't stay in a situation that constantly hurts me. No screaming, no insults, no begging, no threats, just clarity. That is what emotional maturity sounds like. And if a man walks away because you communicated a reasonable boundary, understand something. You did not lose your value. You discovered his capacity. Those are two completely different things. Never measure your worth by somebody else's inability to appreciate it. Sometimes rejection is not rejection of your value. Sometimes it is simply redirection. Sometimes the relationship ends because two people are no longer growing in the same direction. Sometimes you outgrow a person. Sometimes they outgrow you. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do is accept the ending without destroying yourself trying to change it. You have to stop believing that every relationship must be saved. Some relationships are lessons. Some are chapters. Some are seasons. And some are meant to last. Your job is not to force every relationship into the last category. Your job is to recognize what you are experiencing and respond with wisdom. That means you do not tell a man everything just because you are afraid of losing him. You do not tell him your deepest fears every time you need reassurance. You do not compare him to your ex. You do not use another man's attention to create jealousy. You do not repeatedly announce that you are afraid he will leave. Instead, you build a relationship based on honesty, trust, boundaries, communication, and mutual effort. And remember this: a man who truly respects you will not require you to abandon yourself to keep him. He will not demand that you silence your needs. He will not make you feel ashamed for having boundaries. He will not constantly make you compete for his attention. And he will not expect you to accept disrespect just because you love him. Healthy love does not require you to disappear. Healthy love gives you room to become more of yourself. So if you are currently in a relationship, ask yourself a difficult question. Am I being loved, or am I constantly trying to prove that I deserve to be loved? Because if you are always proving yourself, something is wrong. You should not have to audition for your own relationship. You should not have to compete with every woman on social media. You should not have to investigate every change in his mood. You should not have to beg someone to notice your effort. And you should not have to become someone else just to remain interesting to someone. Be the woman who knows who she is. Be the woman who has a life outside of the relationship. Be the woman who has goals that existed before the man arrived. Be the woman who can sit alone without feeling incomplete. Be the woman who can love without losing herself. Because when you become that woman, something changes. You stop asking, how do I make him stay? And you start asking, is this relationship worthy of the woman I'm becoming? That is a completely different question. One comes from fear. The other comes from self-respect. And self-respect changes the kind of love you accept. You start paying attention to consistency instead of promises. You start watching behavior instead of listening only to words. You stop falling in love with potential and start observing reality. You stop asking what someone could become and start asking who they are right now, because potential cannot build a relationship. Facts can. Promises cannot create trust. Consistency can. Chemistry cannot fix disrespect. Character can. And no matter how strong your feelings are, you should never allow those feelings to override reality. If he says he loves you but constantly disrespects you, pay attention. If he says he wants you but never makes an effort, pay attention. If he says you are important but only contacts you when it is convenient, pay attention. You do not need to argue with reality. You simply need to accept what someone's actions are showing you. And when you accept reality, you gain your power back. You no longer need to convince someone. You no longer need to chase. You no longer need to beg. You simply make a decision. And sometimes the most powerful decision a woman can make is to stop trying to be chosen by someone who has already shown her that they are unwilling to choose her properly. That is not bitterness. That is clarity. So, remember these two things. Never tell a man that you are terrified of losing him in a way that makes him responsible for your emotional survival. And never compare him to another man to make him feel threatened, jealous, or inadequate. Tell him what you need. Tell him what you value. Tell him what hurts. Tell him what you will not accept. But never surrender your identity just to keep his attention, because the goal is not to make a man afraid of losing you. The goal is to become so secure in yourself that you are not afraid of losing the wrong man. That is the difference. A woman who fears losing any man will tolerate almost anything. A woman who knows her worth understands that losing the wrong person can sometimes be the beginning of finding herself again. And let me tell you something. Your value does not decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Your beauty does not disappear because somebody stopped appreciating it. Your heart does not become worthless because somebody mishandled it. Your future does not end because somebody walked away. You are still you. You still have dreams. You still have purpose. You still have a life to build, and you still have the ability to love again. So stop giving people the power to decide how you feel about yourself. Stop making another person's attention the evidence that you are valuable. Stop chasing validation from somebody who cannot even give you consistency. Stand tall, speak clearly, love deeply, but never abandon yourself, because the woman who can love a man without losing herself is a woman who understands the real meaning of strength. She does not need to manipulate. She does not need to play games. She does not need to pretend she does not care. She simply knows that love is a choice, not a prison. And when a man sees that you genuinely care about him while still respecting yourself, he sees something different. He sees a woman who cannot be controlled by fear. He sees a woman who has standards. He sees a woman who can stand beside him without standing beneath him. And that kind of woman is not easily forgotten. So if you remember nothing else from this message, remember this. Never make a man the keeper of your self-worth. Never make another man's approval the foundation of your confidence. Never compare yourself to another woman. Never compare your current relationship to someone else's highlight reel. And never be so afraid of losing somebody that you lose yourself first. Love him if he deserves your love. Respect him if he respects you. Support him if he supports you. Build with him if he is willing to build with you. But always remember the woman you were before him. Protect her, develop her, believe in her, because the strongest relationship you will ever have begins with the relationship you have with yourself. When you know your worth, your conversations change, your standards change, your choices change, your relationships change, and eventually your entire life changes. You stop asking people to treat you better. You start choosing people who already know how to treat you well. You stop chasing respect. You start living in a way that commands it. And you stop being afraid of being alone, because you finally understand that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. That is real power. That is real confidence. And that is the kind of mindset no man can take away from you. So love without fear. Speak without desperation. Set boundaries without guilt. Walk away without hatred. And most importantly, never forget who you are just because you fell in love with somebody else. Because the right man will never ask you to choose between loving him and respecting yourself. He will respect the woman you are. He will value the standards you carry. He will appreciate the strength behind your softness. And he will understand that having you in his life is not something he is entitled to. It is something he has the privilege of experiencing. And when two people understand that, love stops becoming a battle for control. It becomes a partnership. It becomes peace. It becomes growth. It becomes something worth protecting. So protect your heart, but don't close it. Protect your standards, but don't become bitter. Protect your identity, but don't stop loving. And protect your self-respect above everything. Because when you refuse to lose yourself for love, you finally create space for a love that does not require you to.